All right, we're going to get started, and I'm excited, as I'm sure everybody is. And so let's start with a prayer. And I will pray, and then we'll let's dive into this thing. So let's pray. Father God, we know that you love your church. We know, Father, how much you love us, that you've demonstrated. You've given your Son, Jesus Christ, as a sacrifice, Father, for us so that we can spend eternity with you. That's how much you love us, Father. We know that you have given us the Holy Spirit, that you equip us with the gifts of the Spirit, and you bless us with the fruits of the Spirit. We also know, Father, that we are part of your great commission to spread your gospel, to be the light of the world, Father, to be a city on the hill, to tell others, Jesus, of your salvation. We know the great responsibility it is to be in your church and to use the spiritual gifts that you have given us to glorify you, Father. And I pray, Father, for those who are struggling, those who are tired, those who may have been lost in ministry, those who need to be restored to the joy of their salvation, Father. And I pray, Father, that this can be a time where we can come to you, Father, where we can be honest with you, where we can lift our concerns to you, where we can be honest with you, Father. And also a time where we can pray for our brothers and sisters who may be struggling in ministry burnout as well, Father. May we lift this time to you, Father. May you bless us. May you speak to us. We even pray for those who are listening, Father, through video, Father, that you will bless them and that you will speak to them and just touch our hearts as well, Father. For we are your children and we know the great love that you have for us, Father. So we call upon you. In your name, Jesus, we pray. Amen. So I told Carolyn last night I was working on this, and I told her, it's kind of funny, it's just a joke, okay, but I said, I'm getting burnt out from writing about burnt out, right? So, nobody laughed, right? I'm kidding. This is like an audience, oh, there we go, great. So, this is great audience participation practice, so, no, but seriously, I was really blessed to work through this. How many of you guys have heard of, by the way, I've changed it from church burnout to ministry burnout. I feel like that's a more appropriate title. How many of you guys, and you may or may not be on a video camera, we might blur you out if you want to, but how many of you guys have experienced ministry burnout? Okay, all right, yeah, all of us. I'm pretty sure that all of us at one point have. If not, we know somebody that has, or if not, we need to know how to prevent ministry burnout so that we can be a healthy church. So all churches have this issue where they're suffering from ministry burnout. It happens. It's in the church. When I was, let me start here. So, what do you guys think ministry burnout is? Let's start. This is the participation part. I do have teachings, but you guys are going to have to participate. Unless we had some sort of call-in service where people call in and somebody picks up the phone. We should have a game show where everybody has a lifeline and they call people. And so that was a joke. So very nice. What is ministry burnout? Let's get somebody to answer that. What do you guys think? Yes.
Well, ministry burnout, I feel, is when you are always involved in ministry, but a big reason is you feel that there's no one else who's stepping up to take over. Yes. So you feel like, okay, well, I gotta do it because no one else, there's a need, and no one else is stepping up, so I'm gonna do it. And eventually, if you do that, it will lead to burnout.
Okay. So I'm going to repeat this so that it can be recorded. I don't know how much is picked up. So you feel like there's a need, and you feel like if you're not going to do it, nobody else is going to do it. And then you kind of get stuck in this pattern where you have to keep doing it. So yes, this is one big aspect of ministry burnout. Okay. All right. What about somebody else? What else is a part of ministry burnout? Yes.
I think it's like when you're involved in the ministry, but then you're doing too much that it just becomes like an everyday routine.
Okay.
You don't think about the purpose of it or the reason why you're doing it. You just have to do it to help the group or people involved in that fellowship.
Okay. Yeah, it becomes an everyday routine, and you're doing it because you have to do it. So yeah, I'm not doing very good at quoting what you're saying, so I need to do a better job summarizing. So, what do you guys think ministry? This is like a different question. What do you think ministry burnout looks like? We know what it is. We said, what does it look like in an individual person? What happens? Yes.
Like there's maybe resentment, or like you feel like because there's no one else doing it, you're kind of doing it, and it's forced.
Yeah, resentment. You're being forced to do it. Nobody wants to be forced to do anything. What else can it look like in the life of, say, a church member, a believer is going through ministry burnout? What can it look like? Yes.
Maybe perfection of the tasks as opposed to caring about other people's opinions, but just kind of letting your own thoughts and opinions about the ministry be more important than other people.
Okay. Yes. I don't know how to summarize that. Hopefully we can pick this up on it. I'm doing a terrible job summarizing. Okay. Yes. Okay.
For me, it would be like when the joy is gone.
No more joy.
It's
Okay.
supposed to be, joyful serving, but if you lose focus of why you're doing it, I guess kind of tying back to what Aaron and saying, a little bit. You lose focus on why you're doing it in the first place, it becomes like a chore.
Yeah.
You
You lose focus. You lose your purpose. Yeah. Yes.
Yes, I think you see people that are tired, slightly angry.
Tired and angry. Yeah. Who wants to go to a church where people are tired and angry? Right? Yeah. Okay, maybe. Yes.
I think people who are going through ministry burnout, they feel unappreciated.
Yeah.
But they feel like I'm doing all this and no one's appreciating it. There's no recognition of whatever.
Yes. Yes. That's we're going to talk about it. All of these are great points, and I want us to know specifically. Here's where we're going to go. We're going to talk about what are things that lead to ministry burnout. We're going to just go through these practical lists. Then we're going to talk about how can a ministry burnout affect a believer or an entire church, for that matter. And then finally, we're going to talk about how can we prevent ministry burnout in our own church. Then we're going to spend some time in prayer. We're going to do all of that in 40 minutes. So, wow. Somebody keep it tight because we have, no, there's a clock back there. So it is 10:10 right now, right? Is that right? So we're going to leave at 10:45, 10:50 at the most. So pray that we can get through this. I really want us to finish this. So, my handy dandy clicker. I have some stuff. Anybody ever heard of Bill Hybels? Big pastor. When I say big, he's very fruitful in the ministry. Loves God. God has used him in powerful ways. But even pastors like this still struggle with church burnout. So Bill Hybels, he did an interview. Actually, this was a confession. He got up on stage one day in his church, and he said these words, and he said, the way that I was doing the work of God was destroying the work of God in my life. And this actually touched several pastors and to-be pastors in the audience. And it began to, basically when he confessed this, it began to open up hearts, and other people came forward and began to transform lives. Later, I'm going to introduce this book in just a minute, but there was a lady, and she interviewed Bill Hybels, and she's in the question it says, "You've mentioned that you come to be in sideline from a ministry a couple of times. What led you to that place, and how did you recognize that you were experiencing that what you were experiencing was endangering what you refer to as your holy discontent?" And then Bill Hybels says, "On 2 occasions, I allowed the growth of the church and the growth of the international component of what we were doing in the church to lead to a level of stress that became unhealthy. I didn't quench my passion for the local church, I just realized that I was going to have to pace myself differently, organize the staff and my colleagues for more effective service, and change internal structures in the church and procedures so that I could continue to pursue my God-given passions in a healthy way, as opposed to getting overly exhausted or psychologically worn down. It happens. This is just one of many interviews. And so I want to point to you guys this book. It's like show and tell time. The name of the church is a scary church. It's called Mad Church Disease. It is by Anne Marie Miller. Anybody ever heard of this book? Okay, it's not a book that you would just like, oh wow, it sounds like mad church, like mad cow disease. So in this book, she actually compares ministry burnout to mad cow disease, and I don't get that whole analogy, but the rest of the book is excellent. I want to, maybe even we could go through this book, Board of Deacons, or I could, one of my ideas, this is just an advertisement, is to, during service, I'm constantly going to be mentioning books. I would love it if we had a table, and we had books, and we had one of those little slide card things where somebody could purchase the books, so that you could take it home with you. So this was one of my ideas. It has nothing to do with this, but so this book right here, Anne Marie, if you look it up, there's some YouTube videos of her, and she was a pastor's kid, a PK, and the beginning of the book was very telling. Her dad was a pastor. He had been burnt out many times, and that led to her whole family being burnt out. And then when she grew up, she actually got into the ministry as well, and she got burnt out. And then, so when she actually left the ministry, she lost like a lot of weight. She actually had some heart conditions. She had anxiety attacks. Her health was terrible. It led to addictions. It led to straying away from God. I mean, this is the extreme of church burnt out. But when she finally came back to Christ, she got rest and she overcame this ministry burnout. She created a website. And the website, let's see if I can find the website. It's called, I think it's called churchburnout.com. And so when she put this website up, it actually crashed because she put these surveys on there, and so many people responded to her surveys that her web server crashed. That means that this is everywhere. The church burnout is everywhere. Me being a pastor, I've served in several churches. One previous church, I saw burnout was actually one of the #1 reasons or hindrances, or actually unhealthy aspects of our church. I saw, this is a pattern, and this is just another church, it doesn't necessarily mean our church. The high schoolers would come to Christ. They would get baptized. And then we would stick them in the ministries, and they would start teaching VBS for the whole summer. They started doing a tutoring program. They started doing the kids ministry. They started doing the worship team. They started leading Bible studies. Not to mention, they also had Christian clubs at their high schools. And then, this is the honest to goodness truth, by the time they were in college, they were already burnt out. I saw this was phenomenal, and this is not just like one person, this is many people. And they were burnt out, and to the point to where they didn't want to do ministry. In fact, when they went off to college, they were actually so burnt out, they didn't even participate in like Christian groups and Christian ministries during that time. And then the pattern also continued to the young adults. They would get involved in every single committee. One of my churches that I served in had the motto that every Christian served, so which is good. And these things are good. I'm not saying these things are bad, to lead Bible studies, to do PBS, all these things. But there was a pattern that was happening. So they would get involved in every single committee, and many of them were talented people. They were young business personnel, and they had many talents, spiritual as well as administrative talents. And so everybody snatched them up, every single committee. And these guys were burnt out, and they were doing like Ray was saying. They were snapping, they were getting angry, they had lost their passion for Christ. And this was even a Chinese church, and I've seen this in many other churches, even Chinese churches. I associate with a lot of Chinese pastors, English pastors. This is a very common thing in churches, and especially Chinese churches. So this lady, Ann Miller, so she created this website, got overwhelmed, And from this, she created this list she actually created this book from the responses that she got. But from this, she came out with a few things that were commonalities. So what she said, that people who are burnt out think that they're the only ones. This is a common thing. You think that you're the only one, so you're not going to go to anybody else. Location doesn't matter. She had people from every continent except for Antarctica. I guess they don't get burnt out because it's so cold there.
Yeah, you got that one.
Carolyn be glad. She gets on to me about my jokes. Anyway, so age doesn't matter. Many people, even in their 50s, 60s, 70s, like I mentioned, the high schoolers were burnt out in one of my previous churches. Ministry position doesn't matter. Pastors. Oh man, if you guys ever looked at pastors, the suicide rate for pastors is phenomenal. The divorce rate for pastors, the depression rate for pastors, it's off the charts. And why is that? Ministry burnout. Support staff and lay members. Length of time in ministry doesn't. A few weeks, some people can get burned out in a few weeks. Some people will be in ministry for 40 years before they get burnt out. This is interesting. Most people do have a system of accountability, people that they can go to and they trust. But most people in her survey indicated that they had not been honest at least once with a person of accountability. And then finally, almost everyone who completed surveys said stress from ministry has affected them emotionally, a feeling of worthlessness, depression, anxiety, anger, or loneliness, and physically, insomnia, headaches, stomach problems, heart issues, weight gain, or inflammation. So this is a serious thing. And like I said, if you're not going through this right now, or if you haven't gone through it, then you might go through it in the future. So we're doing this to prevent this in our church. So what are some things that actually lead to ministry burnout? Now this is one of the 3 points we're going to get to. So what do you guys think? Let me keep it a secret. So what do you guys think are some things that could lead to ministry burnout? Yes.
Maybe taking on too many different ministries, like being on too many committees, or
Yeah.
their volume.
Being on too many committees, overreaching, overexpanding yourself. Okay. What's something else?
The micromanaging, when even you have people working with you, you have to have your hand in everything to make sure things are done right.
Yeah.
And so you're taking on too much responsibility, or you're not trusting the other person to do what they're doing, what they're supposed to be doing.
Yes, micromanaging, not trusting somebody to do. Sometimes we have ministry babies. Like, oh, I started that ministry, that was my dream, and then for whatever reason, you're not able to do the ministry yourself. Maybe you're already involved. And then what if the other person is not doing the ministry the way that you want them to? Then you get stressed. And then even though you're only in one ministry, you're like stressed about this other ministry. Very common. Okay, yeah.
Doing the same ministry for too long.
What? Doing the same ministry too long.
Yes.
You lose your passion, right? Yeah. Okay, yeah.
Relationship with God is not right.
Yes. Yeah. Your relationship with God is not right. There's different reasons for that. It could be that you're doing so much ministry that you're not spending time with God, or your relationship with God might not be right because maybe you're stressed about this ministry, so you're seeking fulfillment from something else, maybe a relationship, addiction, or something. Yeah. Relationship with God. Yeah.
Having like setting expectations that you are the one who's going to do this.
Yeah.
You're supposed to rely on God.
And setting expectations that you're the one that's going to be doing it. You're responsible for this. That it's all about you. It's called pride, where you think that, and I'm going to list this one, that you think that if you don't do it, then that ministry is going to fail. Actually, the whole church is going to fail. Yeah, this is a pride issue. Yeah, maybe one other, then we'll jump into the list. Yeah.
Not enough coworkers.
Yes, not enough support, not enough coworkers. Yes. We'll keep going. Anybody else before? I don't want to cut anybody else. Okay, so great. this is the list. And there's many others, like you guys mentioned. The first one, I put this prior, well, this one's first, put it this way. Allowing spending time with God to be replaced by spending time doing things for God. So you get this, we're actually going to talk about a pendulum in just a minute, where do you rest in God or do you serve God? We're going to talk about that. Second one, thinking that the church will fall apart without you. Very common. This is a hard one, especially for somebody who's innovative. I'll speak about myself. So somebody that's like has all these ideas, right? And you want all these things to happen. And then you think that if you don't do it, the church is, I don't think this, but the church will fall apart. This is a common one. Okay. Another one, trying to prove your love to Christ through ministry. This is another common one. The more I sacrifice, the more I love Jesus. And this can be a type of mentality that's taught in the church. Every member serves, remember? And when you serve, you love Jesus. That's how you show Jesus that you love him. And that is one way. But we don't want that to become where you replace time with God by doing ministry. Another one, fear of letting others down. You might have a strong personality in the church that's very good at convincing people. Somebody's sick this week for Sunday school. Can you teach it? I mean, some people have a hard time saying no, right? They have a fear of letting people down. And then that person is sick like every week, and then pretty soon you're doing Sunday school. And it's not what you intended, right? So nothing against Sunday school, right? We're in Sunday school. Another one, letting your pride become your God. We talked about that. Another one, not setting boundaries. Now this is a good one. When we need to talk about this. So your boundaries with ministry. What? All right. Let me do another plug here. So, what comes first in the church? What comes first in your relationship? What comes first as a Christian? God first. Yeah, let me use this handy dandy pointer. Yeah. Right there. Fall in love with God. This is my vision. This is the way I structure my life. This is the way I would like to move the church forward, like a vision for the church. Number one, fall in love with God. I've actually been on mission trips that had people who weren't Christians. Actually, one time I had a church, and I was very upset with this church. The pastor, he asked if he could, I was friends with this pastor somewhere in California, Southern California, and he said, can I send a mission team up to San Francisco to help to do a mission trip? I was like, that's great. He shows up, he had like 2 vans of youth. I'm like, this is awesome, youth have all this passion. Well, when we get there, I start orienting them on doing orientation on San Francisco, and don't step in the streets, basic like that. And then I started to do, this is how you share your faith with Christ. I did a session on that, and I was looking around, and I was getting all these blank looks. And I was like, wait a minute, let me pause. Went and talked to the pastor. It turned out the majority of them, probably 80% of them, were not Christians. He had brought them up there because he had this super great guy. I loved him. He had this mentality that we're going to bring them on a mission trip, and then maybe they'll find Christ through that mission trip. But I'm like, that's not the way it works. You don't do ministry to find Christ. You find Christ, and then you do ministry. So the second one is be the family of God through the church, which I tie into loving your neighbor, loving yourself. We'll talk about that later. And then once you got these 2 down, fall in love with God. Once you realize that you are a family, then you can be a city on the hill. You can do the Great Commission. So a lot of people actually do this opposite. Let's join the church and let's do a ministry, and then we'll find out where we belong in the church, and then maybe somewhere down the road we'll fall in love with God. So that's not my philosophy. I don't think that's what the scriptures teach either. So not setting boundaries. Another one, take a ministry home with you. How many of you go home and this is ministry related, and you check your emails all the time, and you check your text, you're constantly looking at your phone call. Oh, Facebook. Oh yeah, you get these little things, ding, like Facebook pops up. Somebody commented on my ministry post, right, or something. Oh man, I'm speaking from experience, right? Okay, I said, taking ministry home with you. I love you guys. I love the church, but I love my wife more. Just gonna be honest. My wife is my #1 ministry. When I go home, shame on me because I sent a text, I sent an email, I think to Nav, like about 10 o'clock the other night. When I go home, I don't check my church emails. I'm sorry, guys. Like, I love you guys. If it's an emergency, call me, right? I will pick up in emergencies. But when I go home, my family is most important. You're taking ministry. I don't want you guys to take ministry home with you. Unless you've dedicated that time. Like say, well, I'm just going to spend Monday nights to work on the Sunday school or something like that. That's a different story. But when you're constantly checking your emails, your texts, your Facebook, all of these things, another thing, that actually leads to, and I've done this myself, you dream about ministry. You can't even sleep, you can't get away from it when you're dreaming, right? You begin to get stressed. You're like, oh, I got to teach. I'm just going to pick up Sunday school because I'm teaching Sunday school. And this is not my case, but you're dreaming, like you're worried the whole night because you know you got to teach something the next morning. Or you know you got to do this, whatever ministry. Or maybe you're scared about the ministry. You're like, oh, I know we're going to do witnessing tomorrow. I'm really worried. You have dreams, or you're worried about leading worship, whatever it may be. These are things that lead to ministry burnouts. Unclear expectations, no job descriptions to follow. One of the churches I served in, we structured our church around committees. There was a VBS committee, there was the fellowship committee, the worship committee, committee for a committee. I kid you not, there was a committee to elect a committee. Okay, so finance committee, it just goes on and on. These are good things, right? It was kind of structured around the Saddleback model, and it had been going on for a while. Well, what happened is when I got to the church, I left the church, but nobody had the job description of the committee anymore. The people it had been lost through time, I don't know. So often I would get the question, I'm on the worship committee, but actually what do I need to be doing? And then it was very frustrating. So we had to look at that, and we had to, somebody coming in from out of the box, from another situation. I realized that there were unclear expectations. Another one is lack of communication. You're not telling people what they need to be doing. Another one is lack of support. And these are like no-brainers. And just keep these in your mind because we're going to come back to these at the end. Another one is, listen to this, no encouragement or feedback, like you have mentioned. We used to have, and I don't know if we had this here, we used to have a teacher appreciation day. How many, did we have that here? Teacher appreciation day. It was the coolest thing. It was simple. And so what happened was once a year, they would call up all the teachers by name, and everybody would clap for all the teachers. And then the best part to me was they gave you a Starbucks gift certificate. They even gave me one. And I was like, oh, wow, that's the pastor. But, yeah, appreciation. These are like, these are practical things that we can do. One of the things that leads to many ministry burnout is you're not appreciated. You're just lost in the crowd. Conflicts of ministry personality or ministry styles, like micromanaging. Here's the next slide. Sorry. Conflicts of personality, mismatched job skills, passions. Let's see, old school versus new school ways of doing ministry. I've encountered this before. You want to do technology, you want to do all these things, or you just want to do like printouts, or you just want to do the board. And either way is fine, but you do need to see what your church needs, see which is the best way to communicate, things like that. No freedom to dream. That goes with micromanaging. you're assigned to do a task, say like, and I don't even know the Sunday school curriculum or anything, but say that I know, for example, in my old church, we had, for the youth, we had teaching booklets. And every quarter they got a new booklet, and they kind of just rotated those things. Well, that was your teaching curriculum. You had to stick to that. So I never did. Okay. So I just made it my own stuff. I cannot do like curriculums like that. Or if I do, I'm going to change them up. No freedom to dream. Another one actually is too much freedom to dream. Like, just go do it. You know, just you want a ministry, just do it, right? And then like you have, over the times, I'm sure you guys know this too. You learn different personality types, and you have these. I have this book that describes a different personality. You have this one particular personality that you give them too much freedom to dream, and they'll do things 3/4 of the way. It's like you go in their house and all of their books are read 75% of the way, and then they put them down. They're great visionaries or dreamers, but this is a legit personality. They can't finish things, so sometimes you do need to like have freedom. Sometimes you need to have a little bit of management. So those are just some examples. You guys listed some examples, some things that can lead to ministry burnout. Second thing, how can ministry burnout affect a church or a believer? So, forget you saw that. Okay, how can it affect, this is a Q&A time. How can a ministry burnout affect you guys? What are some characteristics that starts to happen in people who are burnt out? We kind of talked about this a little bit. Yeah.
They stop.
They stop.
They just give up.
Or some people do stop. Some people just go to the other church down the road, right? You got a big church, a mega church, like you can just kind of blend in, not have to do anything. Just be cozy. And some people need that rest. But I would prefer that they stay in our church and rest. That's what we're going to talk about. I'll just list these because we already talked a couple of these. How can ministry burnout affect a believer? It can interfere with your communion with Christ. You're angry, you don't want to be here, maybe your parents brought you to church and you're forced to be there, like you don't want to even know about Christ. It can spread to others. Maybe if you're a workaholic in your ministry, in this book, Marie talked about that, Anne-Marie, and then she was gung-ho, she was working, like so many hours per week, and she expected that from everybody on her staff. It can affect your heart, your attitude. You can start to have negative feelings towards church, towards ministry, or even towards God. You can begin to withdraw from church and ministries. You ever have those people that they call in sick? I can't do it this week, or my kids are sick this week, and then every week is like something, and then there may be another underlying issue there. It may be that they're burnt out. They just don't want to tell you the truth. And that's what we want to be, an open environment where you can tell us the truth. You lose your desire for Bible reading, no desire for prayer. You don't give cheerfully or sacrificially. You feel spiritually empty. You avoid accountable relationships. This is one where you begin to isolate yourself and you don't tell others. And I've seen all of these happen. I'm not just reading a list. You become physically and emotionally unhealthy. Like I said, you stress, you're easily angered. Yes, Anne?
Can I add something? That
Yes.
I find that from what I see, sometimes if you're burnt out, it could be a hindrance to new believers
Yeah.
or even seekers.
If you're
Because
burnt
they
out,
see you
yeah.
and then you're supposed to be like a model to them. And
Yeah.
they see that and then they say, I don't want to be like you. And they could possibly drop out of church.
Yeah. If you're burnt out, it could be a hindrance to unbelievers. This book, wherever it is, it's a scary book. Okay, not only about mad church disease, but it gives examples of unchristian-like attitudes and situations that I would never go to a church like that. The ones that she describes. And so, finally, let's get to the root of this. And how can, so let me, before I flip to it, how can we as Christians and the church overcome this? What are some practical steps to ministry burnout? How can our church personally overcome this? Actually, let's stick to general. How can people overcome ministry burnout? We kind of talked a little bit about this, but you guys got your Bibles? Don't worry, I'm not gonna make you feel guilty if you don't. Okay. It's just a Bible study. Don't worry. It was. They used
Got
to,
just making sure.
yeah, the whole church they used to say, "Oh, that's a John joke." Let's read a story. It's in Luke chapter 10, 38. I don't think I put it up. Too many words. I know you shouldn't have so many words on a PowerPoint, but I just did it anyway. Luke. Actually, it's the first one. Yeah, Luke 10:38. So this story, anybody want to read it? That would be great. Because I'm burnt out up here. No. Sorry. Luke 10:38 through 42. Can somebody read that for us?
Martha and Mary. Now as they were traveling along, he entered a village, and a woman named Martha welcomed her into her home. She had a sister called Mary, who was seated at the Lord's feet, listening to his word. But Martha was distracted with all her preparations. And she came up to him and said, "Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me to do all the serving alone? Then tell her to help me." But the Lord answered and said to her, "Martha, Martha, you are worried and bothered about so many things, but only one thing is necessary. For Mary has chosen the good part, which shall not be taken away from her."
Yeah. So what is this? This story, for those on the internet, was about Mary and Martha, and one wanted to serve and one wanted to just sit and talk with Jesus. So, what are some principles that you can see just from that one scripture alone? Yes.
Well, sometimes we think, well, if I'm feeling burnt out in ministry, I'm gonna take a break and you party, you play, you know, you go on vacation. But I think it is to really rest in God. It's not just go on vacation and enjoying, I don't know, whatever. But you need to really rest in Him and meet with Him and get renewed in His presence by reading and praying. And that's the true rest versus, okay, I had enough. I see you, I'm going, you know, or whatever. It's really, you need to rest. That's the true rest that will prepare you for your next ministry. If, you know, and we don't, because everything that I'm saying is because I've experienced it, I've felt it, I need to say to myself, it's okay to rest.
Yes.
It's okay to, because I felt that way, you know, like, okay, I need to teach Sunday school because there's only so many people and there's none, I need to do this, and I would feel guilty. Like what you say, you know, I might, if you prove your love for God by how you serve, but sometimes you know what, you need to prove your love for God by just being with Him and saying, He is number one, and if I never do another act of ministry, if my relationship with God is good, and you know, if I love God the way I should love God, you know, my ministry will flow out of that. You know, whereas I'm like, okay, Sunday school again, or being an advisor again, or doing this again. You know, I'm beginning to learn that in my older age. You know that I need to love God first.
To love God. Yeah. Thanks for sharing. And this is a time where we will share. Let me check our time. What does that say? 40?
Yeah.
40?
Yeah.
Okay. So. Let me just say a few things, and then maybe we should pick this up next week. That would be awesome if we could pray. But we're running out of time. Some practical examples. People do take vacations. Like, let me take a vacation and then I'll be ready to teach Sunday school another 10 years. Right? I don't think it works like that. If your body, if your mind, if your spirit tells you you need rest, you need rest. I might get in trouble saying this, I don't know, but it's almost like as a church we should release you to focus on one thing at a time, fall in love with God. Be a part of the family, and then you can do these things. Now, if I show up to church and everybody has quit next week, I'm not sure, right? Okay, or will I? Because we're all resting in Christ. I do know of churches that have done this. I don't think we're to that point yet. I think the worship leader, Matt Redman, had talked about that, where his whole church, and that's where he wrote the song, Coming Back to the Heart of Worship. And he wrote that song during that time. And the whole church quit all of their ministries and just rested. I mean, I'm sure somebody did something, right?
Turn on the lights.
You are now assigned to the light switch. So how about this? Have a Sabbath. There is a story in Mark 6:31. The disciples, they've been out preaching, doing all these things, and then Jesus said, let me just read it for you. Mark 6:31. Jesus says at that point, says, the apostles gathered around Jesus and reported to him all that they had done and taught. Then, because so many people were coming and going and they did not even have a chance to eat, he said to them, come with me by yourselves to a quiet place and get some rest. So, how about this? Jesus called his disciples to rest. Not only that, but Jesus constantly was resting. You always find Jesus going off to a place with his hymn and the Father. Not only that, but right before the crucifixion, he put his disciples here, and then he went off by himself again. Jesus was always, not only that, but Jesus sometimes limited people in his ministry circle. There were thousands of people following him at times. And so at one point during the Transfiguration, he just brought James and John and Peter, and he left the others, and he brought them up to the mountain for the Transfiguration. So there was boundaries in Jesus' ministry. There were times when he rested. And this actually brings up Romans 12:1. Let me read this real quick. I'll make a point with this. Romans 12:1, we get the Apostle Paul. And as we're studying the book of Acts, Paul he's a worker. I mean, he's workaholic. I don't know. I mean, like, he had been whipped so many times, beaten, and he's still going, stoned. He's like, nothing's stopping me. In 12:1, so he writes and he instructs the churches that he's writing to, the church in Rome. He says, therefore, I urge you, brothers, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your spiritual act of worship. And then so it says, offer your bodies as a living sacrifice. So you get this pendulum where on one side, Christians are supposed to give our whole life. And we're just supposed to be whipped and tortured and, whatever else. But on the other side, Jesus is saying, rest. And so I want to propose that we should have a balance. There needs to be a balance in our life. Change your purpose, fall in love with God first. And I'm going to fly through these, create boundaries. We said that, find authentic relationships. These are how to overcome burnout. Find people who you can confide in. I want you to know you can confide in me. If you're burnt out, come to me. Tell me. I had somebody do this already. I told them, it's okay. Go rest. Go spend time with God. I'm going to tell you the same thing. If I tell everybody, we need somebody to flip the light switch later, okay? Because work on, this is a very practical, work on your physical self as well, and your emotional lifestyle. When I was in Brazil, my missionary leader, he said, you need to have a balanced spiritual, physical, and emotional life. So spiritual, we had a strict routine with a Bible reading, prayer. We also had a physical. I had to choose some physical activity. Mine was basketball. His was boxing. Another guy was capoeira, which is a Brazilian like dance. So work out. Seek Christian counseling. Redeemer counseling services are amazing. Go to bed on time. These are practical. You guys know this. Cut out unhealthy food. There's this one pastor I worked with. I never saw him drink water, ever. I was constantly saying, you need to drink water. Go drink some water. I mean, you can't sit there all day in air conditioning and not drink water. You're going to get burnt out. Eat at regular times. She has all these surveys in this books by pastors, and it's terrible. Like 33% of them are overweight. They're stressed. They're in hospitals. There's a reason pastors are high risk for church burnout. And so we didn't have time for prayer. 2 more minutes, let me say something. One thing I would like to do, practical for our church, is create a ministry checklist. Every single person who's serving in ministry, I want us to go through these things and you check off yes, no, yes, no. We should do a survey. Maybe we can get the board to do this, the type deacons at the church, and then maybe the pastors can talk to the board, and maybe we can all talk to each other. Let's create a checklist. Go through every person who's in a personal touch, just not internet, but maybe if we walked up to somebody and said, can I ask you these questions? Number 2, make it easier for people to rest. In one situation, I gave this person no time commitment. I said, if God calls you to do something else, that's what God calls. I'm not going to stand in the way. Maybe make it easier for people to rest. Another one, encourage people to help one another with their ministry load. Maybe some of in our particular church, maybe we need to combine some ministries to cut back on the load. I've heard one person mention this already. And this is, let's say you set boundaries. I want to encourage you guys to do that. Rotate ministries more often. Maybe if you're in something for 10 years, maybe you've lost your zeal, you need to like try something new. And finally, ask and seek forgiveness for those who've been burnt out before. Build that trust back up. So with that, it's 10:50. I'm going to pray. And unfortunately, I meant to leave like 30 minutes for prayer. Okay, why is our Sunday school so short? Let's show up at 8 o'clock next time. So, okay, we'll be burnt out. Right? Then we'll pray about being. Yeah, there you go. So the people in our church have been burnt out. People that you know, you guys may have been burnt out. Speaking from the church, I want to ask for forgiveness for that. It's more important that each and every one of you guys love God, fall in love with God, spend time with Him. I would prefer that everybody love God rather than be teaching something or doing something or some ministry. We need to build that trust back up. If you've been burnt out, come to me, come to one of your deacons, come to a friend. If you need to rest, let me know. Maybe I'm too easy, but rest. If you're on the internet and you're watching this, the same thing. Just come talk to me, talk to Dennis, talk to one of the board members. So with that, unfortunately I got to close. Let me just pray. And as I pray, if you know of somebody or if you yourself have been burnt out in ministry, let's just mention that your name or somebody's name specifically to God, and it doesn't have to be out loud, and we're just going to pray over those people. If you join me in prayer. Father God, we thank you that, God, we thank you that we can learn these principles, God, that we can dive into what it is to have a healthy relationship with you, Father. Dive into knowledge of what type of life you desire for us to have, Father. God, we confess and ask for forgiveness for those that we've asked too much from, Father. For those that we have not looked to, those who we have not cared for, Father, those who we used, Father, for ministry purposes, God. But God, we know that your truest desire, Father, is to love you with all of our heart, with all of our mind, with all of our soul, and with all of our strength, Father. We know that that's your number one desire for our life, Father. God, help us. God, forgive us. God, lead us to be your church and your children as you desire. Father, continue to teach us. God, right now we lift up all the names of the people who have been burnt out in ministry in our church, Father, or even other churches, Father. And everybody in this room who's been hurt or burnt out, Father, or has lost their love for you, Father, because of ministry burnout. God, may you heal them. May you give them the rest that they need, that they desire, that you desire for their lives, Father. May you restore the joy of your salvation in them, Father. God, may you let them know that your church will survive without them, without this ministry they're doing, Father. May you take away the guilt that they may have, the fear that they may have of talking to somebody about it. God, may you restore. May you restore your church, Father. And we pray this all to you, our Father, in Jesus and Holy Spirit.